Hi boys and girls, happy Tuesday. So today we're going to do another math lesson together. Um, this would be day 2, Tuesday, in your packet. Before we get started, I want you to get out your packet and go to the day that says Tuesday. So for today's lesson, we're going to be working together to solve some of the problems in your packet together, and then I'll leave some for you to do on your own. Okay? So, if we look at today's page in our packet, Tuesday, we're going to start over here, and we're going to do number 1 together first. Okay? So they've given you a number line, and your number line starts at 0 and goes to 1. So I'm going to draw that on my board. Starts at 0 and goes to 1. Okay, this is what you guys have on your paper. And then to the side, they also have these fractions for comparing. 1/3 with a circle, and then 2/3 on the other side of the circle. Today we're going to be filling in that circle by comparing our fractions. Just like we've done before, we're going to be writing greater than, less than, or equal to. Except this time, instead of drawing our rectangles or our circles to show these fractions, we're going to use our number line. So as you can see, both of our fractions have the same unit. So what is our unit for this problem? Thirds, exactly. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our number line, and I want you to write this on your paper as I do it here. We're going to partition this number line into thirds. So if we're making thirds, how many lines do we draw? 1 less, so we're drawing 2, exactly. 2 even or odd? It's even. So we can't start in the middle, we need to go around the middle. So I'll put my finger where the middle would be to help guide me, and then draw a line, draw around the middle. Now I can count to make sure I have thirds. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm going to need to compare 1/3 to 2/3. So I need to draw my thirds, my fractions, above the number line so I can see them compared to the whole numbers, just like we did in yesterday's lesson. So 0 would be equal to how many thirds? 0 thirds. Then we have 1/3, 2/3, and then 1 whole would be equal to 3/3. Great. So now that you have your number line labeled with your thirds and then your fractions from 0/3 to 3/3, we can compare 1/3 to 2/3. So here is 1/3. And here is 2/3. We can determine which one is less by determining which one is closer to the 0. So here's 1/3 and here's 2/3. So 1/3 is blank to 2/3. Is 1/3 closer to 0 or 2/3? We come back up here and see 1/3 is closer to 0 than 2/3. So 1/3 is less than 2/3, meaning when we draw our comparison sign, the open end, just like the alligator that we learned about in kindergarten and first grade, wants to eat the larger one. So our sign would be like this to show that 1/3 is less than 2/3. All right, so back into our packet where you guys are writing. I'm going to skip number 2 because it's very similar to number 1, and I want you to try it on your own. Just to be careful and watch your unit. Now your unit is not thirds, but 6. So you're going to be doing 6 on number 2 for that number line. Let's look at number 3 together. So number 3, we have 2 fractions. We're going to compare 1/4 with 1/8. And then we have, let me move that number line. Sorry about that, boys and girls. We're going to keep going though, because I don't want to stop where we're learning and what's happening in our learning right now. All right, so we have 1/4 to 1/8, and now we're going to draw our number line, or I'm going to draw my number line. You guys already have it on your paper. So there's the number line, and our number line starts at 0 and goes to 1. All right, so if our number line starts at 0 and goes to 1, well, if you look at our fractions, we have two different units. We have fourths and we have eighths. My suggestion when you're comparing fractions with two different units is to start with the smaller unit, meaning the smaller number, but it would actually be a larger size because it would be cut into less pieces. So I'm going to start with 1/4. So if I'm going to separate my line into fourths, I could draw, need fourths, so how many lines do we need? 3, great. So we're starting with 3 lines, that's odd, so we can start in the middle and do 1 on each end. So I'm going to separate my line in the middle, and then 1 in the middle of this, and 1 in the middle of that. All right, since I have two different units, I'm going to want to write my fractions on different sides of the number line. I'm going to write my fourths on the top. So 0 would be how many fourths? 0 fourths. 1/4. Make sure you're doing this on your paper as well. 2/4. 3/4. 4/4. Great, so we have our fourths labeled, but now we also need to do our other unit, our eighths. So I'm going to label my eighths in the bottom. But we already have fourths. So what do we know about 4 and 8? Can we use 4 to make 8? If we were going to multiply, what would we multiply the 4 by to make 8? 4 is a double to 8, so we would multiply it by 2. That means we can take each fourth and make it into 2 parts, and then we would have eighths. So we can separate each of our fourths in half to make our eighths. So 0/4 to 1/4, half. 1/4 to 2/4, half. Make sure you're doing this on your paper with me. 2/4 to 3/4, half. 3/4 to 4/4, half. Now let's count and make sure we made eighths to have 8 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we have our eighths, and we can label them below. Well, at 0, we would have 0/8, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 1 whole would be equal or equivalent to 8/8. Now, I want to see which one is closer to 0, because that will tell me which one is less. So, 1/4 is here. So I'm going to draw a bar to 0 to show me which one is greater than or less than. 1/8 is here. So, if you've made your lines with me from 1/4 to 0 and 1/8 to 0, you can clearly see which one is less, 1/4 or 1/8. 1/8. So 1/4 is greater than 1/8 because 1/8 is less than 1/4. Make sure you're filling this in on your paper as we go. It is not recording me, is it? Yes, it is. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do number 4 together as well. And then I'll let you do number 5 on your own. So let's look at number 4 together. So number 4, we have 4/5 compared to 4/10. So I'm going to make my number line like you guys have on your paper. And I'm going to draw my endpoints. My endpoints are 0 to 1 again. Now, if we go back to our fractions that we're comparing, we can see we have different units. We have fifths and we have eighths. Just like last time I chose to do my fourths before my eighths, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to draw my fifths and label them across the top. And then I'm going to draw my tenths and label them across the bottom. Alright, so let's start with our fifths. If I'm making 5 equal groups, how many lines do I need? 4. So if I'm making 4 lines, is 4 even or odd? It's even because we can separate it 2 and 2. So we can't start in the middle, we have to go around the middle. Now I can count to make sure I've made 5 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now on the top, I'm going to label my fifths. So at 0, we have 0 fifths. Then 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. Make sure you're doing this on your paper. 4/5, and 5/5. Now, I need to make tenths. Well, what do we know about 5 and tenths? Could we use the number 5 to make 10? Yes, again, we have a double. So I can double each of my fifths to turn this number line into tenths. So all I have to do is separate each fifth into half to make it into tenths. So from 0/5 to 1/5, we'll draw another bracket. 1/5 to 2/5, 2/5 to 3/5, 3/5 to 4/5, and 4/5 to 5/5. Now we can count to make sure we've correctly separated our number line into tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we're ready to label the bottom of our number line with tenths. So we have 0 tenths, 1 tenth, make sure you're doing this on your paper, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths, and 1 whole would be equal to or equivalent to 10 tenths. Now we're ready to compare our fractions. So 4/5. Here's 4/5. So I'm going to draw a line above where my fifths are to show how close it is to 0. I'm going to make this line pretty dark so that I can see that this is the line I'm using to compare my fractions. So 4/5 compared to 4 tenths. So now I find 4 tenths and I'll do a line below the number line to show how close it is to 0. Make sure you're also doing this on your paper. Make a dark line above from 4/5 to 0 and a dark line below for 4 tenths to 0. 4/5 and 4 tenths. Now we can clearly see which one is closer to 0. Yes, 4/5 is closer. So 4 tenths is closer. So 4 tenths is less than 4/5. So if we read it from left to right, 4/5 is greater than 4 tenths. Alright guys, so also in your packet, you have some word problems. You have 3. We're going to do one together, and then I'm going to let you do the last 2 on your own. So, what's the first thing we need to do when we have a story problem? We need our chart, our know, need to know expression chart. So that's what I'm going to start with first, and I would love for you to write with me on your paper as I write on my whiteboard. Know, need to know, expression. So we're going to read the story problem, and as we do, we'll write in the things we know. Liz and Jay gave each other a piece of string. Liz's string is 4/6 yards long. So Liz is 4/6. And Jay's string is 5/7. Jay is 5/7. Make sure you're writing this with me on your paper. Whose string is longer? Draw a number line to model the length of both strings. Explain the comparison using pictures, numbers, and words. So our question, our need to know, is whose string is longer. So I'm going to write the word longer. We need to know, does Liz have a longer string with 4/6, or does Jay have a longer string with 5/7? It tells me for my expression to use a number line. So I'm going to draw a number line on my board. Now, to determine my beginning point and my end point, I need to look at my fractions. 4/6, is that greater than a whole or less than a whole? Remember, a whole would be 6/6, so 4/6 is less than one whole. Now let's look at 5/7. Is 5/7 greater than a whole or less than a whole? Remember, a whole in sevenths would be 7/7. So that tells me that 5/7 is less than one whole. So that my endpoints on my number line will be 0 to 1, because neither one of my fractions are greater than a whole. Now, if I look at my 6 and my 7ths, they're not going to have the same points on the number line like they would if it was 6 and thirds, or a number that I could double like we did with 5 and 10, or 4 and 8. So what's going to be best when I can't double on the same number line is to draw two number lines. So I'm going to draw another number line as well. So on your paper, I'm going to move mine up so that you guys can see it. We're going to have in our expression two number lines. But guys, here's what's really important when you're comparing two number lines. They need to be the exact same length for it to work. So I'm going to draw it right underneath and make sure my points are at the same place. 0 and 1. So first, I'm going to do 4/6. So if I'm making 6 equal parts, one less would be 5. So I need 5 equal parts, or 5 lines to make 6 equal parts. 5 is odd, so I can start in the middle. 5. Then I need to do 2 on each end. Well, 2 is even. So I'm going to put my finger in the middle and go around the middle, go around. So now I can count to make sure I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I can label my fractions above. 0, 6, 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 7, 6, wait, whoops, 5, 6, not 7. 5, 6, and then one whole would be 6, 6. Now, to show 4/6 and its closeness to 0, I'm going to draw a bar from 4/6 to the end, just like we were doing on our number line before. This will show me how much, or the value of 4/6. Now, on my number line below, I'm going to make sevenths to show Jay's 5/7. So if I'm making sevenths, how many lines do I need? 6. Is 6 even or is 6 odd? 6 is even. We're going to need 3 and 3. So we're going to go around the middle. Then we need 2 more here and 2 more here. Well, if I need to make 2 That's even again. So I want to put my finger in the middle and my finger in the middle. Now I can count to make sure I have sevens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm ready to label my fractions. 0 sevenths, 1 seventh, 2 sevenths, 3 sevenths, 4 sevenths, 5 sevenths, 6 sevenths, and 1 whole would be equivalent to 7 sevenths. Now I need to label my 5 sevenths. Now, if we compare our number lines from 4/6 to 5 sevenths, which one is more? It looks like 5 sevenths is just a little bit bigger than 4/6. So, we would say that J's string is longer. J's is longer. And that would be the answer to that story problem. Is there any way we could check our answer? Because maybe our number lines are not quite right. Could we also make our rectangle and break it in half to compare the two fractions? We definitely could. But again, it would come out to where 5 sevenths is just a little bit more than 4/6. Also, in your packet, you got some fraction strips. I also included your scissors. It would be great for you to make sure you cut out your fraction strips so that you could compare them. Check our answer by getting out 4/6 and 5 sevenths and comparing them. Alright guys, make sure you go and finish the other two story problems and number 2 and number 5 on the other side on your own. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a message and I'll be happy to help. Miss you guys. Take care. Bye.